Equal Pay Day.
Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome on the second day of the mentoring marathon as a part of the Equal Pay Day. My name is Eliška Vámošová, and I'm going to guide you through English-speaking parts of this event. Let me introduce to you our today's speaker, Edina Seleskovic, an interdisciplinary artist, by sharing a little bit of her interesting life story. Edina was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Due to the Bosnian War, she came to the United States as a high school student. She graduated from the Corcoran School of Art in Washington, D.C. Her works have been exhibited in over 100 exhibitions in galleries throughout the United States, Europe, and Asia. Today, she is on the list of 1,000 U.S. artists published by the National Museum of Women in Art in Washington. She's seeking answers to questions about the role of culture in our society. Edina is also challenging the established perception of art and artists. Her public art installations on their global mission generate public dialogue connecting young people and creativity, culture institutions and communities, art and new technologies. Edina, welcome. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Eliška, for this wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. Dear ladies, thank you so much for being here. It is such a pleasure to be here today, and that through sharing our experiences, we can learn together, right? Thank you, Lenka, and your amazing team for organizing this event under these circumstances. I think we all agree that we need this dose of positivity in our lives now, I guess, more than ever. You see, these days I find myself talking a lot about how we can see ourselves through the eye of an artist in order to decode complexity, unravel threads in the flurry of the unexpected, attain new possibilities, a new way really of thinking and perceiving. How we can look at art to be able to see our world, our leadership approach with a whole new set of eyes, learning how to see and how to observe, all in order to create a new vision for our individual and collective future. You know, my theory is that art and artists can be catalysts for inventiveness, for imagination, and innovation, while really seeking an inspiration for the metamorphosis of self and the world. Agreeably, the arts are defined by the adventure of expression, right? Overcoming fears of taking visionary risks in the process of creating, and as such, an extremely valuable vehicle for teaching courage to make new and perfect things, but always using the impartiality to alternative perspectives. You know, someone said that we now live in the artistic times, and I completely agree. Throughout human history, times of ambiguity, times of crises, have actually led to evolutionary quantum leaps. And this time, our contemporary time of the pandemic, is really not any different. It is obvious that, you know, the disruption we have spent now a decade talking about in every aspect of our lives and business is no longer just a desire or luxury, right? Now it's a necessity. In essence, creativity, I believe today, is an existential obligation. But let's look at it this way. I believe that we live in the artistic times because these are the times of plasticity, when we realize that we can toss aside all predetermined notions and learn behavior and experience and really enter times of blatant vicissitudes. We all now know how an artist feels in front of a blank canvas and on a daily basis, right? Not knowing where the next brushstrokes will lead us. So you got a little bit of a feeling of how us as artists really feel. You see, in times as these, which for me seem to have continuously tested my personal and professional life, I realized that I have grown resolutely to believe that art has the ability to restore the trust, that it can give hope of rebuilding freedom and connectivity. You see, I've witnessed firsthand how artification of society can encourage public discourse. So now that I've said that, please allow me to show you what I mean. And I'm going to get a bit personal and briefly explain why I say that these times of crisis are pretty much continuous in my life. You see, visual art has really saved my life when I was a displaced teenager in the United States, while my entire family was under the fire wars in Bosnia. Art has also led me through the emotional and intellectual storm of witnessing September 11th really up and close. And when I returned to Bosnia after being an exhibiting artist in New York for the love of my family, art shaped the essence of the purpose of my work and my creations. To get even more personal, after 20 years after I arrived to the United States and after an artist's life in New York and countless shows and all over the world, and after reaching my dreams that I even wasn't thinking I was allowed to dream as a kid, I fell in love and with an amazing man, and I returned to my homeland, but I continued doing my work. I continued traveling back and forth between the US and Bosnia, but now with a family and with an additional cultural shock over and over and over again. And then my aha moment happened that did not really start off that way. I'll give you a little bit of a background. In 2014, Europe and European Union made a significant investment in cultural institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina in order to commemorate 100 years since the beginning of the First World War, right? Which we know that assassination of Duke Ferdinand in Sarajevo was the spark, right? I was commissioned by the mayor of Sarajevo to design a postage stamp to memorialize this anniversary. But I knew from the very start that that event in human history in Bosnia and Herzegovina was not completely defined. Because people here, even 100 years later, cannot agree if Gabriel Princip was a hero or a terrorist. So in my very American way, I decided that my design should not talk about the past, about lessons we had to learn, but about the future. And for the first time in my career, I painted something that was just beautiful, something about others and not about me. And something that could hopefully unite us. And I was full of enthusiasm and everybody really liked my design, but I was completely wrong. National Regulatory Agency of Bosnia and Herzegovina censored this postage stamp for political reasons, none of which I could properly explain here to you. But the truth is that it was censored without an appeal or elaboration. Now imagine how that felt to my American self. In practical terms, what actually happened is that they banned an image of a bird and a bird of peace and freedom flying over the city of Sarajevo. And let me show you what I mean so you can see why the censorship was so frivolous and completely ludicrous. I will share my screen now so you can see what I'm talking about. Here we go. So this is what they banned. A very controversial image, right? Actually, my aha moment was first filled with denial and disappointment. Then it was comical. And then I was devastated because with all this turbulence in my life, what I was telling you about, right? The war and family and tragedy, I have never truly really experienced censorship before in my life, right? People could purchase my art or not purchase it, but nobody has ever told me what I can and cannot paint. But my experience taught me to ask one question in these moments that has led me to these evolutionary quantum leaps that I was telling you about. And that question I will share with you because I think it's really beneficial, and it goes like this. What can I do now that I couldn't do if the world was normal, if the world was as I perceived it should be? you see, for me at that time, the answers were really in two significant points, right? First, as an artist who's always self-examining and self-questioning, I had questions really about what I'm doing and about the relevance of art in art history and relevance of an image in the present time, because I continue to spend my life creating images in the world where we're constantly bombarded with more and more images. And I wasn't really sure how relevant that was. And that when this censorship happened, I realized that if art did not matter, nobody would feel the need to censor it, right? If it did not matter, political subjects would not argue over it. Demonstrators would not spend their time taking down sculptures, and crazy religious nuts would not hunt down caricature artists. And this agency would not stop me from printing this beautiful image, right? So it took censorship for me to answer this question to myself and to say, yes, art had an influence in our societies and it still does. And second, I realized that at that moment that I really thought about my freedom, my personal freedom, only when it was taken away. And that I was left with determination to fight for it only when it was taken away. Employing my stubbornness fully and completely after going through the grieving process, I decided that the bird of peace and freedom belongs in Sarajevo, and that it will exist one way or another. That it should possibly exist in the form that's greater than a postage stamp, that it should be visible even more and impressive and with sublime qualities, right? I also realized, because a national agency censored a national sign of peace and freedom, that I now live in a country that really requires an injection of positivity and has a serious need for reinterpretation of its identity, and that somebody needs to make a stand. But who better than an artist, right? So I listened to my instinct, and my instinct was to actually turn to young people, because I didn't think that they were indoctrinated enough. I thought that they were still open to new possibilities, and that the atmosphere, political atmosphere in Bosnia wasn't affecting their lives to the fullest. So here we are, here are my kids. I really love them. Anyway, I truly felt that I was lucky that these high school kids who I talked to even before about being an artist now wanted to be a part of something that's larger than ourselves without really knowing what that's going to turn out to be. I also felt an obligation to show to these young people what life has taught me, right? Which is that there are times when you don't take no for an answer, and that I have been a witness that when one door closes, the other one opens, right? Out of these conversations with the kids about culture and art and what they mean to them, are they forms of free expression? Can they be tools to communicate, to build, to establish that which we have to fight so hard to keep, and that which is so easily lost, right? Our freedom. And out of their openness grew something incredible. You see, although we're well informed these days, we stay pretty silent and keep our eyes closed to the fact that the basic ideas and concepts of freedom are slipping through our fingers. Culture and contemporary art have played their own role in keeping this silence, but I believe there's still a way for us to generate a global dialogue with the understanding that culture and art could be such a platform, right? After all, you know, art, I feel like art has saved my life, so why couldn't it be a vehicle for communication? Now that the pandemic has made all of us experience firsthand our freedoms questioned, and I'm not really only talking about having to stay home, but in the form of totalitarian regimes all over the world becoming even more radical, the concept of freedom has become crucial. And now people are coming up to me and telling me, oh, now I know what you were talking about. Unfortunately, you know, freedom is like air. We don't really consider it until it becomes hard to breathe. Again, admittedly, I also started really asking myself these questions only once I had my freedom, the one I completely took for granted, the freedom of creation taken away from me. So while visiting these schools and going around Bosnia and having these talks, for the next 6 months after the censorship and a giant media wrangling that it has generated, I contemplated how to present these ideas I had, right? How to create an image, an object that will carry all these thoughts and these messages of these hundreds of young kids I spoke to. How to present an image of a bird that has been explored throughout art history and history infinitely, without it being a decorational illustration, or even worse, difficult to comprehend or misunderstood, which contemporary art often is. I knew I wanted it to be a sculpture, but not a static one. I knew I wanted it to enter public space and reach out to the public. I wanted to go to them and not wait for them to come to me. I wanted the public and I to really speak the same language, understanding one another. I wanted it to be overwhelming and beautiful at the same time, right? So I really had to unlearn everything I taught myself about creating images and objects, and I had to completely change my own perspective. So after countless tries and fails, I created a sculpture that I felt is simple, but strong. And this is what it looks like. Individually, these sculptures are made of just 2 metal strips that, like 2 hands or 2 messages, fold into a shape of bird. It depicts a symbol recognized really in every culture and every religion as a symbol of moving forward, of transitioning, of hoping, of dreaming. And then we end up making hundreds of these. I was able to do that because an owner of local metal industries hoped to purchase my painting. He actually ended up not minding to shut down his factory for a couple of days to have his workers, instead of pellet stoves, make sculptures for me in order to acquire this painting. So that worked out. More than that, you see, each sculpture, after it left the factory and after I reshaped it with my own hands, was given life by a young student's message handwritten on its wings. We then lifted these sculptures in the air, suspending them from public space, and sent our thoughts and our ideas to the world, right? Who may or may not accept them. But, you know, amazingly, we realized that the world was awaiting. The Think Freedom installation first premiered at the newly rebuilt Sarajevo City Hall in 2015, which is the image you're looking at. It is a beautiful building that was burned down at the beginning of the war in 1992, and it took him 20 years to rebuild it. This was the first art installation ever exhibited in the new rebuilt building. And that happened thanks to the mayor of Sarajevo, who was normal, and he still is. He's no longer the mayor, but he's still normal, who, like myself, was terrified with the censorship of the postage stamp because he really liked it so much. We made the installation, multimedia, interactive installation, incorporating sculpture and light and sound and kinetics. I worked with photographers and filmmakers and screenwriters. And you see, at that point, it was just really a small project. It was just me and a bunch of kids. I honestly thought that after the opening night, that was going to be it, right? It was going to be my statement to the world, and we're going to be done with it, right? But the next morning, the installation's photograph, I actually woke up and I found it published by the Associated Press as the global image of the day. And that looks like that. See, nothing that I've done before, no matter how many awards and no matter how many collectors have purchased my work, has had such a reach. And that proved to me that art, when it's honest, and really anything when it's honest, it has the power to connect. Because we got to have the most significant image of the day on the entire planet with a contemporary art installation and from Sarajevo, right? More than that, the first Think Freedom sculpture to leave from Sarajevo was actually a gold-plated one. And that was, it left Sarajevo on the papal plane when His Holiness Pope Francis visited Sarajevo, and it went straight to the Vatican. And after that, our Think Freedom project was no longer a small project. We got a call from New York from my curator to present the installation at the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, which is on 47th Street, excuse me, between 2nd and 1st Avenue. But after we signed the contract, I realized that I really wanted more. And the world needed more, and it's not just Bosnia that needs to stand up, that we all do. And it really made no sense for me to go from Sarajevo to New York, right? I really wish to talk to high schoolers from all over the world, to have young artists work with me, and really to engage ordinary people to be part of something much larger than ourselves, right? So now, Think Freedom, it's on its European tour. We have been to Novi Sad in partnership with the Student Cultural Center and United States Embassy. I insisted that we go to Banja Luka, and everybody thought I was crazy because Banja Luka is the Serbian capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And by the way, it was the Serbs who burned down the city hall. We presented the installation in partnership with this Museum of Contemporary Art and with high schools and their College of Architecture 4 days before a referendum that everybody thought was going to start new atrocities in Bosnia. My mom was horrified that with my Muslim name, I was exhibiting in Banja Luka. But you know, people are incredible, and over 1,000 people came to the opening. The next morning, again, I woke up and we were on the cover of their major newspaper. After Banja Luka, we went to Ljubljana in partnership with both College of Fine Arts and College of Architecture, United States Embassy in the city of Ljubljana. This is at their city hall. And it was amazing because these kids from College of Fine Arts and College of Architecture, it was their first project that they did together. After that, we were in Skopje in their main pedestrian walkway. And what I loved about Skopje is that we really had a great time there, and it was a great opening. But when we came back to take down the sculptures and to prepare them for the next host city, the coffee owners from these restaurants and coffee bars along the side here, I don't know if you can see them on the picture, came to me and said, what petition can we sign for you to leave these here? But there's no petition because we had to move on. We, after that, were in Zagreb at Kolovićevi Dvori. It was me and Catherine the Great exhibiting there. We were in Brussels at the Beaux-Arts Center. We were in Rome, we were in Hungary, where last year our project was the year that commemorated 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. We were in Slovakia, and I'm not gonna play that video for you yet because it has a secret behind it. You know, it's amazing because I've spoken to thousands of young high school kids, right? We will continue our tour, you know. We have host cities waiting for us on 4 different continents. The New York installation will be an installation that will incorporate all these messages from all these kids installed together and next to one another and in so many languages with so many different ideas. But, you know, it's beautiful because it's just one common hope, right? For us to be free. On our tour, we're also filming a creative documentary directed by award-winning director Ahmed Imamovic on the concept of freedom in our time. We're collecting ideas of local audience and community leaders that will enter into a publication that will be presented in New York. That is now scheduled for 2025, right? So we have really grown from just a public art project to a platform where creative concepts are activated by contemporary art and powered by dialogue and connectivity, right? It is a collaboration of shared experience and connecting communities and creativity and new technologies and really making a participatory cultural innovation. You know, in each host city, I work with students of art and architecture, like you saw. I've worked with them online even before the pandemic, because I believe that this is honestly how we're going to keep working in the future. And I wanted them to create something that's authentic for their city, you know. Think freedom is not just my work, it is work of us all. I have completely transformed my practice from creating these precious objects for galleries to creating objects that are really vehicles of communication, to becoming like a medium, right? Like I call myself an instigator. That will inspire connectivity and collective creativity, and more importantly, this dialogue I keep talking about, because I think without it, we're lost. I feel that it is not even about answers, but about questions that we have to pose to ourselves and to each other continuously. Because these conversations, these questions, these thoughts keep traveling, right? And they keep continuing to inspire, you know. Art became much less about my solitary practice when I stayed in the studio by myself and create, and became my mission, right? My reward is really not my name posted in galleries or appreciation from my critics that I was before so really concerned about. It's not even about awards, even though I'm very proud to be selected this year as the artist who won the World Citizen Artist Award. My reward really comes from the messages from my kids. You know, they'll send me these messages, where are we going to next, you know? Because it tells me that they really feel like they're traveling with these ideas and their sculptures everywhere we go. So by the end of our journey, we will have an audience of over 30 million people who have seen this installation in person. At this point, that number is 6,500,000 people, with over 30,000 voices of young people heard, you know. But the pandemic, you know, I decided again in my life, it will not stop us. You know, postponed installations actually made me think again with that question that I always keep posing to myself, it seems like. What could I do now that I didn't think of doing when the world was, you know, semi-logical? So now I work with developers and video artists and filmmakers and screenwriters. Interestingly enough, after an extensive research into tech companies all over Europe that I could contract, the most open team to an artist who doesn't really understand programming. I mean, I know the logic, but I don't know their jobs, so I don't know the rules and the limitations. The most open team to come out of their comfort zone with me was the team of professors and students at the University of Sarajevo. So I kind of ended up making a full circle. Even though when we first spoke about them creating augmented reality application for me, they have never worked with augmented reality before. But we spent about 6 months working together and talking and researching, and we have developed an augmented reality interactive application that really beyond, I mean, I should have done it with or without the pandemic, because it really allows for this project through its now digital presence to have an even a greater reach. So for those who are not familiar with augmented reality, let me show you what I mean. I'll show you a short video. Let's see if it will play. There we go.
Edina, sorry to interrupt you, but you have to share your screen again.
I haven't shared my screen. Okay, let's do that. Here we go. Share. Okay, can you see me now? Yes, okay, let me try playing that video before. Again, sorry. Here we go. So I turned off the sound on this. Can you hear me speaking? Okay, because I wanted to tell you what's going on. So augmented reality application is an Android application that she was just scanning an image. When you scan an image, it activates the application and you can see these sculptures in a digital form. What's lovely about them in the digital form versus them in the physical form is that when they're digital, you can play with them. You can turn them around, you can enlarge them. When you click on them, you can actually read the messages, which you really can't when I install them in your city and they're up, 10 feet above your head. You can also type in your own message, as she's doing. That message is automatically generated onto another sculpture, and another sculpture is automatically added to the application. And then you can take a screenshot and you can post it on social media as you were there, part of the installation. So I thought that this was a lot of fun at first, but now I see that it was really something that was necessary. And this application right now we're using as an integral part of the installation, but we're also making it be able to stand on its own, right? We are getting ready for installations for next year in Poland, and the kids designed these like installations with like 10,000 sculptures, and the organizers said to me, how are you going to be able to do it? And I said, we will, because we have new technologies. But I also wanted to tell you that after we created this augmented reality application, this team in Sarajevo at the university actually created an entire department dedicated solely to augmented reality. They have since worked with me on several other applications that we have even won rewards for, but they have also worked with the city of Sarajevo, employing augmented reality in tourism promotion and historical preservation and even marketing campaigns. They are now, if not the only one, then one of the rare colleges in Bosnia using this to really generate their own revenue, right? Right now, I'm also working on gamification of interactive workshops when I conduct my teaching, and to really have a new way of having these interactive moments that I used to have with people in my mentorship classes, or when I teach at Blade leadership through art. I was really enjoying that interaction, and I felt really bad when I thought that I would be left without it because we're now doing everything online. So to kind of recap a little bit, because I really want to try to open this up for discussion. You know, some might say that my positivity is completely misplaced, but I will tell you that I've gone through the lockdown, I've gone through the isolation, I've gone through the nightmare of the virus. My husband had pretty serious symptoms. Some close friends have passed. But despite that, I feel like we do have an opportunity that is not to be missed. That this uncertainty is really giving us the ability to use the plasticity of our lives and really reinvent ourselves in a whole new way. And to put it in perspective, right? If my postage stamp wasn't censored, if it was printed as planned, today I would just be an author of a beautiful postage stamp that people probably lick and forget about. But instead, I've gained a whole new way of looking at my work. And this new work has given me a completely different life. If I wasn't stranded in the United States when the war in Bosnia happened, I would not have been an artist. I would have been a doctor or a lawyer like my parents wanted. So it kind of all makes sense at the end. And I'm certain actually that I won't even be able to be part of this conversation without the pandemic, because I'm in a large project in Bosnia right now, designing a museum. And I'm prevented, I can't travel, not with or without the pandemic, because I have to stay here and work. So, you know, despite all of that, here we are talking, and, you know, we're trying to find new ways. I really don't think that we have reached the answer. When I think about September 11th, I realized that while I was observing the buildings falling in front of me, I really had no idea what was going on. People in Bosnia in front of their TV screens, or in Czech Republic in front of their TV screens, knew what was happening before we who were seeing it happen. We had no idea why, who, and what. Right now, I feel like we're still at that stage. We're still have big question marks above our heads, and we're still not completely sure who, what, when, why, and how. But I'm certain that we will come out of this. What I hope is that we will come out of this better and stronger and more open. I would love to see if you guys have any questions for me. If there's something you really think we can talk about even further, because at the end, you know, whether you're an artist or not an artist, there is something about looking at life from a completely different perspective that can be appreciated between us all. So I will look at the chat. Great. So the people are asking about the application, but let me go back a little bit. And unfortunately, I can only answer questions that are in English because my Czech is terrible. Do you want to translate any of these for me, Eliška?
Yeah, sure. I can do that. One of them is if there's any chance that we can see your work here in Czech Republic.
I really hope so. I think we started this conversation last year, but we were not able to conclude it. I think there's an opportunity in the next year. And I think that as we're becoming more digital, it will become less logistically difficult to create this anywhere we want to go. For next year, we have scheduled Poland and Germany, and I don't see why we can't do Prague at the same time. Thank you so much. I see this wonderful note. One image stands for 1,000 words. Thank you. It's, I think it's the power of image is really important. I think we lose the power of image because we are so bombarded with images all the time. I right now also teach about visual intelligence, and I'll talk about it in our mentorship class, because we really have to train ourselves how to see things and how to observe them and not just, you know, look at things and scan them. Our brains have developed filters in order to make sense of what we're seeing. And we sometimes, you know, as Americans say, we miss the forest from all the trees. I would love to answer this question. What is, in your opinion, your key ingredients, character trait, which has been enabled you to work as success as an artist? I think one, you know, art school, I went to one of the top art schools in the United States, but when you ask me what I learned there, the most important thing that I learned is to really know yourself, right? So it's almost sometimes impossible to change yourself. And I'm not really about changing yourself. I'm really about learning who you are and employing your good and bad traits for the good. So I knew early on that I'm very stubborn, and I try to use that stubbornness in order to push me forward, right? I'm not even, I know I'm not even as ambitious as I'm stubborn. And I, a lot of times, have actually had problems because I keep pounding at a wall, you know, that maybe shouldn't have been broken down. But I try to use all my trades. I also know that I'm hardworking, so I will, you know, work myself to death, and I won't sleep until something is done the way I feel. I also learned that I'm a perfectionist, and that could be a big problem. So I end up having these conversations with myself where I told myself that if I reach 80% of the 100% that my perfectionist self wanted, then I have to say to myself, that is okay. The great thing about, I got it at 80%. That was my deal with myself. I also tell myself, you have to talk to yourself like you're talking to a best friend, and not like you're talking to an enemy. So just, what would you say to your best friend? If you have a problem, what would you say to your best friend? I kind of try to you know, talk to myself in that way. And I've also realized the great thing about being a perfectionist is once I feel okay with something, then no critic can touch me, right? But I also, if I don't think something is good, everybody else could keep saying how it's great, but I will not sleep for next week thinking about all the things I should have done differently. So
Right,
I have to be okay with me. And that that is kind of the most important for me personally, dialogue. So my advice really is just learn what works for you, who you are, what your good and the bad traits are, and then employ them, you know, to get to the goal, right? Thank you so much for these wonderful. Somebody said, can we access the app? Right now, and I hope that will change, but right now, the application is, we're keeping it kind of exclusive because it is activated by pointing your phone at an image. The application is downloadable. It's on Google Play, but you have to have this image to be able to activate it. We're still thinking about how do we incorporate that. So will the application be accessible to all? Will it be completely free? Or will it be really something that you have to go to a certain place or be in a certain place to be able to see it? So we're still kind of battling that. We're still going through the cranks and the bugs in the application. What I hope is that we will test it at you know, in one location and then be able to let the world see it. You know, I also wanted to show you something else, and I'm gonna share my screen again because we are not running too much out of time, but I wanted to show you something. So everybody now in the online world is asking, how do we show visual art digitally, right? What does that mean and how do we do it? And we end up throwing these terms at each other like virtual exhibitions and online exhibitions, where at the end of the day, it's really an image posted on a website. So I wanted to show you what the virtual exhibition of Think Freedom looks like now. It premiered at the Sarajevo Innovation Summit last week. So I will share my screen for you to see what virtual exhibition of Think Freedom right now looks like. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you so much. It is not easy to be able to get that emotion or, to provoke emotions and impressions when you're in front of a computer screen. But, it really is all about trying to make an effort and trying to think about things in a completely different way to be able to come to some new things, to be able to make things a different way. So I hope you felt, even for a little bit, what people feel when they visit the exhibition.
Thank you, Edina. It was amazing, and I feel like I'm speechless. But great work. I have like questions for you if you want. I select some. There is one, Edina. It is so true that freedom is fragile.
I even before the pandemic, but now even more. The story about the frog and the hot water. I mean, people talk about the story and the story of the frog and the hot water a lot in the States. When if you put a frog in boiling water, it will jump out. But if you take a frog, stick it in a pot of lukewarm water, and then keep turning it up, it will boil itself. For a long time, I felt like we are that frog, and the heat is being turned on us, meaning that our freedom was being taken away. And I'm not just talking about autocracies and third world countries. I'm talking about even Western democracies that have regulated us so much. And now in the pandemic, it becomes even harder. Freedom is something that if we're not vigilant, if we do not think about it, if we just keep, allowing institutions and other people to just step in on our freedom little by little by little, we will find it completely, we'll find ourselves completely lost. And then to be free again requires like serious, revolutionary action. It's a lot easier to lose it than to gain it again. And I think it's really important. I think it's really important to really think about each day. Did we go a step further in our evolution as a human civilization, or did we take a step back?
Absolutely agree. And I want to say that I really appreciate that you're trying to innovate and bring digital things and digital innovation to the art. And I think it's something that can bring more young people, right, into the art. Another question from Christina Munten. How large is your support team, and how do you manage them on top of focusing on your creative activities?
So I realized that my creative self who creates and my organizing self who organizes are using two different parts of the same brain, and that I really have to create at one time and then at another time to really work on the logistical part. I do have a wonderful support team who works with me from Bosnia, but also what I'm really grateful for is all the partners in each host city who really believe in this project and spend a lot of time creating it. The great thing about the project, it can be as small or as large as we want to make it. We have done it from small installations inside to a couple, 100 pieces to really large installation. In Slovakia, we have stretched over 2 kilometers of cables. We were installing for 4 days. This composition you heard is actually composition that the students at the local music school composed directly for our project. So it really, depends on how we want to do it. That's the beauty of the project. If we have a large support, then we can really make a big project, or if we don't, then we can make it as small. I also have to work on my managing skills because I'm horrible at delegating, so I end up doing everything. But I work on that. That's a process, and that is something that I have to keep evolving. But I do have a team of people who are around me who really help me a lot, and they're amazing.
Mm-hmm. Edina, if you have time, if you're going to have time later, you have to read comments in the chat, because there's so many comments like it's stunning, great, relaxed, inspiring, great atmosphere. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, I also personally find it very inspirational and motivated. There's another word, another question, maybe the last one, because we have like 2 minutes. So how do you look at more art objects in a public environment, even in the public doesn't understand them, like street, square?
You know, contemporary art and contemporary artists have grown to talk the language that nobody understands. You know, it's like speaking Hungarian in China. We have to change that. We have to, if we want to be understood and we really want to talk to the public, we have to speak in the language we all understand. And I hope that this kind of reset that we're going through right now will be a step in that direction, because bottom line, visual art is primal form of human communication, right? You don't have to understand that video, right? So we need to go back to that. And visual art, you should either like it or not like it. You don't have to be able to explain why. It either touches you or it doesn't. And it touches different people because different people are different people. But you either have a connection to it or you don't. And that is very basic, very primal, and very universal, you know. I would love if I can, I don't even know how I can save these comments on the chat to answer them even personally, but please, my contact is edina.seleskovic@gmail.com. And please feel free to talk to me and to communicate with me. I love talking to people and to be able to keep this conversation going.
Equal payday.